Alright, everyone, welcome to Brandon at Random Reviews, covering one unsystematically chosen movie at a time. Today, the movie is the two-part animated film The Dark Knight Returns. Part 1 was released on September 25th, 2012, and Part 2 was released on January 29th, 2013, based on the 1986 series of comic books of the same name by writer and artist Frank Miller. Directed by Jay Oliva. For the cast, we have Peter Weller as Batman/Bruce Wayne, Ariel Winter as Robin/Carrie Kelly, and Michael Emerson as the Joker. For the plot synopsis, after several years on hiatus, an aging Batman is forced out of retirement as crime reaches unprecedented levels in Gotham City, and he must intervene. Alright guys, let's just dive right into this motherfucking movie. So I want to give a little backstory on the original comics. Batman was originally a darker character when he debuted in 1938, but the comics code of the 1950s cut down on this image significantly until the 1970s when his stories started to return more to those dark roots. By the mid-1980s, changes in direction at DC Comics led to the commissioning of Frank Miller to create this story, which arguably became the most popular story in the shift of the character's image. However, despite its popularity and influence, the story is not considered canon, meaning that it is considered completely separate from the main universe and storyline of the main serialized comics released by DC, allowing for the narrative to venture into events that would not affect or necessarily be acknowledged by the main comics. I'll be honest, when I originally heard that Peter Weller would voice Batman in this animated movie, I was a little surprised. I wasn't sure if it would sound right. Like most people, my only frame of reference would be him as RoboCop, but he's honestly perfect. The distinctiveness of his voice really suits the tone of this story perfectly. The first part of this movie covers a gang that has overtaken Gotham City called the Mutants. The gang not only orchestrates dangerous criminal activity, but their tactics and crimes are escalating rapidly, and police attempts at intervention only strengthens their resolve. Early on, a young female character named Carrie Kelly is introduced and subsequently teams up with Batman to become the new Robin. Two-Face has undergone plastic surgery to make both sides of his face look like normal Harvey Dent again, and the Joker is shown institutionalized and not speaking or doing much of anything outside of watching the news and listening to interactions of those around him. This movie is set in what feels like an alternate 1980s universe, mostly adhering to the setting of the original stories. The animation is done in a more modern style, similar to other DC animated features, while still maintaining 80s aesthetics. The midway point of the story reveals a request by President Reagan to have Superman intervene and stop Batman's resurgence in Gotham City that is perceived by many to have gone out of control. The relationship depicted between the two major heroes in the story shows a friendship that has fallen apart due to a difference in approach and ideals. Superman has allied himself with authorities, and Batman views this as selling out, surrendering power and influence to those whose interest may be corrupted or biased. Much of the exposition of the story is conveyed through depictions of media coverage, news and talk shows with personalities for and against Batman, sharing the pros and cons of his presence, especially in regard to the way it seems to bring villains out of the woodwork. One disclaimer I will give to first-time viewers is that a lot of prominent scenes and themes might feel all too familiar nowadays, but it's important to note that this story came out before these now common tropes had been done to death by other Batman stories that are often probably trying to emulate The Dark Knight Returns. Alright, on to ratings. IMDb, Part 1, 7.9, Part 2, 8.3, Letterboxd, Part 1, 3.8, Part 2, 3.9, Rotten Tomato Critic Score, Part 1, 100%, Part 2, 100%, Rotten Tomato Audience Score, Part 1, 93%, Part 2, 94%, Personal Rating, 5 out of 5 stars. Like I say, this story was pretty fucking groundbreaking when it debuted in 1986. If you're trying to get into the comics, it's basically a staple. It's like one of the ones you have to read to kind of understand the direction that stories took, and the DC Animation Studio did stellar work in adapting this to film, making the right choices and retaining original elements to evoke the feel of the original comics, and filling in the blanks that were not fully captured by the original comic book format. Alright everyone, thank you for stopping by. I do appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day. Bye now.